Hey, good morning. So this is my commentary on A Week to Get $1 Million. This comes from the book Think and Grow Rich. And as you know, I'm reading the action pack, going rather slowly through the action pack so I can really dig in and get those really important nuggets this time around. This is my third time reading Think and Grow Rich through. And I've been reading, so I'm listening on Audible, and I'm also reading the book. And when I'm on Audible, I usually tag along on my Kindle if I can, if I'm not driving, so that I can really understand and get it in two different channels. And this week was about the fifth step toward riches, which is imagination. Now, if you're listening to this, you're probably a sales professional, or sales is a huge part of what you do. And so a lot of times when we get into the think and grow rich type mentality of if I think it, I can get it, we have to realize there's more to this than just thinking, right? So I want to share this story about 1 week to get $1 million. And it's the story of a Reverend Frank Gonzalez. Now, Reverend Gonzalez was going through college and had challenges with the educational system. He felt that it was defective, and it had been in his mind to create a college that would be more effective and would not be handicapped by orthodox methods of education. But he needed $1 million, which back then was probably closer to $100 million for us these days. And that was a large amount of money. And he thought about it, and it created that burning desire that Napoleon Hill is so fond of telling us about. He knew that if you had burning desire and you thought about it and you had the affirmations, that you could create these things. But he was missing a key part, and he was missing this key. But he had been thinking about all this, but he never realized the $1 million until he did one thing. He took action. See, most of us would tend to go, well, I guess it just wasn't meant to be. I'm in circles where people think that if something doesn't happen because they want it and they've put a little effort toward it, that it's not meant to be. But the truth is that more is meant to be than we think, if we're willing to put action and act on a plan that comes to us. So this is what Dr. Gonzalez said and what led him to get the $1 million. It was a Saturday afternoon, and he was in his room thinking of ways and means to raise the money to carry out his plans. And that had been for 2 years, okay? But he had done nothing but think. He made up his mind then and there he would get the necessary $1 million within a week. Okay, he'd been thinking about it for 2 years. Now he was going to get it within a week. How? He decided not to be concerned about that. The main importance for him was to get the money. He made a decision to get the money. So we have to make a decision to get the money. And the moment he reached a definite decision within a specified period of time, he had this assurance that it was going to happen. Really cool, right? And then things began to happen in a hurry. He called the newspapers and announced that he would preach a sermon the following morning entitled, "What Would I Do If I Had $1 Million?" He went to work on the sermon. He put it all together. He practiced it. He was ready to go. And then the next morning, he left his sermon notes at home. Oh my goodness. But the thing is he could already see himself and feel himself being in possession of the $1 million. Well, he was in the pulpit about ready to deliver the sermon when he discovered he didn't have the sermon. And it was too late for him to go back to his notes. But because he was so familiar with the material and he'd been cultivating these ideas for a while, his subconscious mind already knew what he needed. So he gave the sermon. When he sat down and finished, a man slowly arose from his seat about 3 rows from the rear and made his way to the pulpit. I wondered what he was going to do, says Gonzalez. He came to the pulpit, extended his hand, and said, "Reverend, I liked your sermon. I believe you can do everything you said you would if you had $1 million. To prove I believe in you and your sermon, if you will come to my office tomorrow morning, I will give you the $1 million. And he gave the man his name. Now, what was the difference? Two things, I believe. One was a decision. He'd been thinking about it and thinking about it. He made a decision he was going to have that money. The second thing is he took action. So the decision spawned action. So here's my thought for today. If you've been wondering and thinking, then really start to make a decision that you're going to act today, moving forward on your plan. It doesn't have to be perfect. He didn't know how that million was going to come to him, but he knew that he had to do the sermon. We get inspired action when we decide to move forward, and we release all fear of not being able to succeed. That's the thing. I would tip my hat to Dana Farron, because she writes how you have to be willing to fail in order to succeed. Why? It releases all of the anxiety of messing up so that you're free to focus on what you have to do to get where you want to go. So imagination, Napoleon Hill, that was my thought for the day, and I wanted to share that with you. Hope it inspires you. Talk to me in the link below in YouTube and subscribe to my channel. Have a great day.